It's early April, and about a year ago at this point, we walked this property for the first time. Today we're gonna check out what things look like now, what worked, what hasn't, and some plans for year number 2. It's a really exciting day for me. It's the first time that I've actually owned my own farm in Michigan. I just got those brassicas in, went well. Well, we just got done fertilizing here. Definitely had to go the old-fashioned way, and that took a little while, but we got her done. Excited to see how things come along, and really appreciate you guys following along. First time I've been up here since I planted, and things look really, really nice. My first official hunt on the 70. And man, for October 23rd, I don't think you could ask for much more in a hunt. Season wrapped up on the 1st, and there was probably a dozen deer scattered throughout this cut, and that was just really, really encouraging to see that hopefully this is paying off. Right now we're standing in the Big Bottom plot, and I would say this was the biggest overall change that we implemented out here. Before we added this food, there really wasn't a destination food source that was out here, so that was one of my main goals starting out, and that's what we did with this down here. It's about 3/4 of an acre, and this past year we planted turnips and radishes and then some cereal grains right in front of the blind. I did come back in here and frost seed clover into these cereals, and I'm not totally sure on my plan for this year for the larger portion of the plot, but thankfully we have about a month or so to get that figured out. So definitely paid off. There was a lot of deer using this food plot throughout the season, and we had some really good hunts out of this blind. So glad we did this, and looking forward to figuring out what our plan is for this coming year and what this food plot looks like for 2026. Something else we've done to increase the usability of this Big Bottom plot is we edge feathered around most of the food plot here. And reason being is I wanted to just overall increase the daylight usage of this, and the edge feathering just increases browse, it increases cover, and then it also kind of funnels where we want these deer to come in and out of the food plot. And there was a portion on, I would call it the western half of the food plot, where deer would cross back and forth a lot of times. So we did put a stand in the timber a little ways, and we'll take a look at that too. But this edge feathering, I need to push it off the food plot a little ways, but that'll just be a project we'll take care of in the next couple weeks. We're gonna head into the timber now to check out that tree stand location on the north side of this food plot and how we kind of funneled the deer movement in front of that. As you can see behind me, there's a maple with 4 or 5 different stumps coming off it. That's gonna be our tree stand tree, and what I've done is, it looks kind of messy, but I cut a bunch of the timber on the southwest side of that stand, which will hopefully funnel the movement all in front, and that allows us to come in from the back with a southwest or west prevailing wind and get into that stand pretty easily. And it needs to be cleaned up a little bit in front just to ensure that the travel through here even more, but it should work out pretty good. Just west of here is where we did a lot of that cutting on that south facing slope, and these 2 spots should work hand in hand with this being more of a transition and travel area going in and out of the Big Bottom plot, and then that acting more as bedding over there. So in a perfect world, we'd get bucks cruising from that bedding area through this corridor here, and hopefully we'll be in the stand. So we're gonna head over and check out that bedding area we caught on the south facing slope, and give you guys an idea on what that looks like and why we tackled that. When I got this farm, it greatly lacked younger browse, ground cover, and just younger growth in general. So that was one of my biggest goals after season this year, was to get the saw out and try and get cutting as much as we could. This is one of the main spots we focused in on. It's a southwest or south facing slope on kind of the north border of the property. So I came in here with the saw, and we got started in early January. And this is where I really learned the difference between cutting in colder weather or below freezing weather versus warmer weather when you should be cutting. So we ended up felling a lot of these trees, and we didn't get too many of them to hinge just because of the conditions we were cutting in. But at the end of the day, my main goal was just to drop as much timber as possible, just to encourage the younger growth, younger browse, and get more bedding on this property. So as you can see behind me, this is what we tried to accomplish here. it could use a lot of detailing, and I'll have to come back in here and clear open some pockets, but I'm really excited to see what this looks like later on this spring and this summer with obviously all the sunlight it can get. And I do think it will help on a multitude of different things. So overall, I've been happy with it. We'll take a walk through here and just give you an idea of what it looks like in the middle, and then we will continue on. I had originally cut a lot of these trees up, chest high, and tried to hinge them that height. I got a lot of feedback that I should have been cutting them a lot lower, which is what I came in here and did. So now they're about knee height. And the benefit to that is it just makes them a lot more accessible to the deer. And these smaller stumps should produce a lot of saplings or suckers that come off them. And in turn, I've used the term and heard the term mineral stump before. So that should just produce a lot more browse coming off that stump, and I'm excited to see what that looks like when things start greening up later on this year. So continue walking through here, and then we're gonna head over to that ridge where the sanctuary's at. We're just about up to the sanctuary, and I think it was 3 videos ago or 2 videos ago, we came in here and pruned some of these apple trees. Right behind me is a crab apple that needed a lot of work, and both the other apple trees did too. But we pruned this one, and I learned from one of you guys that crab apples are great for cross-pollination, along with obviously being a good food source for deer. So my plan is there's kind of an open area here. I'm gonna come in here with probably, I don't know, half a dozen other apple tree varieties, and I'm gonna plant some specifically in this area to hopefully get some good cross-pollination from this crab apple, and then it overall would just be a good spot for them too. So looking forward to getting that knocked out in the next couple months. And yeah, we're gonna continue making our way over to the sanctuary and get eyes on that. We just got to the sanctuary right now on top of this ridge. And one of the coolest things about this spot was before we had even initially started talking about the sanctuary, I think it was after we did our first cutting up here, we flew the drone, and there was probably, I don't know, 6 to 10 deer that were already using this. And it was just really cool to see on the drone, and we got some cool footage of that in the snow. So great to see they were already using it. After that, we did cut a fair amount more of this spot, and I just really have high hopes for this one because it's on a ridge, middle of the property, and there's a bunch of deer that had been using it, and I think it'll be a great spot for a sanctuary. So excited to see what this turns out like. Similar to that last spot we were at, it could use a fair amount of clearing out and then kind of detailing up and whatnot, but there's 3 or 4 different pockets of cuts that we did, and there's even a little bit of a south-facing slope on the south side of the ridge that should generate a bunch of regrowth. And yeah, I'm excited to see what this turns out like and how many deer actually use it. We have had a camera running up here over the last couple months, and that too has been loaded with deer, and there's been some gobblers using it and whatnot. So just good to see. And like I said, excited to see what this turns out like. We are gonna head back south a little ways. There's kind of an open area up there, and not sure my plans yet for that, but that's something we'll figure out over the next month or so. We just had to take about a 45-minute break. There was a line of storms that came through, so we headed back to the truck, got a couple things done, and let the rain pass, and just came back out. So right now, I'm standing in our other food plot on the southwest portion of the property, and we were in here a couple weeks ago, and I frost seeded this. And this past fall, I didn't hunt it at all. We had a camera in here just overlooking the plot, and there was a fair amount of deer using it. Wasn't the best conditions when I drilled into here, but we did get some germination, and like I said, I frost seeded it a couple weeks ago. So I'm not totally sure my plans on it. It is nice having a little bit of food on this part of the property, and I was fairly content with the results for just spraying and then drilling into that thatch this past fall. So I would like to obviously run a camera out here again and then potentially get a ground blind on the knoll back behind me here, but we'll see. We're gonna continue east, get into that open area, and then there's I can see actually that group of pine trees where there was a bunch of deer bedding there during the winter just with some thermal cover. So we'll continue making our way over that direction and see what that looks like. I'm really surprised there's not a shed laying underneath any of these pines here. And we've talked about it a couple times, but throughout the winter and then earlier on this spring when we had snow, there was so many deer using this area here, and there were a couple different times where we walked up here and there was a dozen beds just all underneath this thermal cover. So it's nice to see they're obviously using it. And to touch on this open area where there's, I mean, a little bit of pine, there's some younger maples and whatnot, but right now it's just kind of a desert and there's not a whole lot of deer using it. I still don't have a great plan on what we're gonna do with it this year. We talked about potentially planting some pines in there just to add some structure, and that's probably something I will do, whether we mix in some switchgrass and some pockets and just to add something to it, because like I said, right now it's just a desert and there's not a whole lot of reasons they'd be using that, just because there's no food, no cover, and it's just barren. So still figuring out what we're gonna do, but I think we'll try and tackle something along those lines and just add something to it. But from here, we're gonna head east. There's a spot in the timber that we highlighted a little while back where we'll put a stand, and yeah, we'll see what that looks like there. And we found this spot from looking at a aerial map with the topography settings on, and then also just seeing where all the deer would come in and out of the food plot on the south side. And there was a big X when there was snow on the ground. There was a big X where you could see they were using this ridge, and there was a pretty big intersection there. So we'll have pretty good access coming in from the east, and we already have picked out this stand tree, so now it's just a matter of getting that stand up and getting it hung. So we're almost there. We'll head over there and take a look. You can see the stand tree right behind me, and what this spot is basically the tops of two ridges that kind of intersect right here. And as we were walking up, you could see where the runs are both on top of those ridges. And I think with a prevailing west or southwest wind, we have this kind of dump right behind the stand, and we'll be able to come in from the east, and with those two winds, it'll be able to blow right over top of that. And I think this spot will especially be good during the rut, finding bucks cruising the tops of these ridges, and we'll have bulletproof access to slide right in here. And yeah, even with, I mean, evening hunts, having it slope down, the thermals will just get dragged right behind you, and it'll be pretty bulletproof. So I'm looking forward to getting in this tree come November. Just walking up the driveway here, and this was one of the first projects that we knocked out back in last May, I think it was. I had a guy come in and he cleared this, and then we put gravel down. And this actually leads up to the build location. I'm actually not going to build up here, and there's a reason for that. I'm not gonna tell you guys what it is yet, but I'm really looking forward to introducing another project on the channel this spring. So be on the lookout for that. Overall, I was really happy with everything that came together out here and all the work that we put in for year one. And going back to even putting in the big bottom plot last summer and then getting that planted and hunting that last fall, that turned into a really good spot. And we had some great hunts out there and saw a lot of deer on multiple occasions. So I'm really looking forward to getting that dialed in this year and making some improvements to that, being what I'm going to end up planning and how we can make that even better, and especially with the edge feathering around it. So that'll be fun to see. I do think that if I spend good cold front days in October, that'll be the most likely opportunity to kill a buck out there. And then plus having those two rut locations that we identified on both sides of the big bottom plot in the timber a little ways, I think those will be really huntable too during the rut. Also looking forward to seeing what effect all that cutting will have on the property. I think that'll just add so much more browse and a lot more cover. And I think it's been evident even over the last month or so, there's been a fair amount of deer on camera. So that's been encouraging to see. But yeah, overall, I was really happy with how things turned out this year, and I'm really looking forward to the projects to come in 2026. This spring, would like to get some apple trees out here, and would like to still find a way to get water down to that big bottom plot. I think that would be really beneficial, especially being that there's not much water on this farm at all. And we do have turkey season coming up in a couple weeks. We have been getting a few toms on camera, so I'm really looking forward to getting up here to try and shoot a gobbler. As always, I really appreciate the feedback and insight that you guys provide. If there's anything else you want to see out here, or any recommendations you have, please continue to share those. Not totally sure when we're going to be up here next, but we will see you guys on the next one.